Good afternoon. Welcome to the Legislative Council meeting of June 18th. Worship Mayor McPhee is delayed in transit from meetings with the Minister in Edmonton, so I will call this meeting to order at 3 p.m. I'd like to take a motion for adoption of the minutes. Councillor Curtis makes that motion. Any additions or deletions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. I'd like to call for adoption of the minutes. Councillor Warwa makes that motion. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all of those in favor? We don't have any delegations today, so we'll go to our quarterly progress reports and ask Julie Gosson, Family and Community Support Services Manager, to take over.
Great, thank you. I'm happy to be here and be able to give my second quarter report. I've got a sheet that I've prepared, that our office has prepared. I'm not going to go through every single one of these things. There's 3 different presentation sheets there. However, I'm just going to pick out a few of the highlights, and if council has any questions, then they can certainly ask any questions of any of the areas that I didn't go over, I didn't highlight. So I just wanted to start with our strategic plan, our 2023 to 2026 strat plan. We are on track. Actually, we are ahead of schedule on that, on our action items. And so the 2 areas that we've completed during this quarter was our information referral and then the community social capital. So it's actually this sheet right here that you have in front of you. Our front page is our strat plan action items and then also our recommendations as well. So we were able to complete those 2 areas with our continuum of service project that we did in the community, and we did that through interagency. So we gathered all the different agencies and organizations within the community during our interagency meetings, and we had them develop a working document specifically around that continuum of service. So from early intervention all the way to crisis. And they were able to communicate to us where they were delivering services, their contact information, and then they're going to revisit that document at every interagency and talk about gaps in the services, anything that is needed or any requests that is coming from community, so that it's a fantastic document that they put together, and I'm actually very proud of this document and what they were able to do. In fact, we are going to be speaking about this or presenting this at the FCSSAA conference in November. So that's a great project that our office has developed and working with community on. Moving on to agencies are telling us. So this is a bit of a snapshot of what we're hearing in the community from our agencies. And I'll just bring attention to the rise in autism diagnosis. So we're hearing that from AHS right now, but also through our FRN. The FRN staff have had families come in to the center and sharing that their child has been diagnosed with autism. So our coordinator, the FRN hub coordinator, is actually reached out to Autism Society Alberta and to hopefully have a community presentation and then also see what resources that we can bring to the community for these families. So that's where we're at with that right now. Yeah. In our later stage prevention support, I'd like to highlight that childcare initiative that we were working on. So during the last quarter, or during this quarter, the members of the coalition, or sorry, the members of the initiative did a presentation to the County of Minburn Council. They also conducted a survey. That survey has closed, and they do have those results. The results are compiled, so if anybody would like a copy of those, we do have those. And the committee right now is at the stage of working with the Cooperative First. So that's an agency that is able to come out and help lay the foundation for a business plan around childcare in our community. It is a nonprofit. And it does help to set up grants, prepare for financial supports. They'll also work with stakeholders on an operating budget and then facility plan and support as well. So right now we're just securing those stakeholders. We have identified 3 or 4 stakeholders in our community. They're just in the process of talking to their boards. And I know one presentation, or perhaps we're looking at even the town of Vegreville being one of those stakeholders. So having that conversation too with council around whether it would be a good fit for the town to be on that as a stakeholder. Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. Once we've secured the stakeholders, then reaching back out to the Cooperative First and getting the ball rolling on that. So I will let you know where we're at with that moving forward. All right, we also during this quarter, we were able to bring a couple of partners to our community. One of them, and I will highlight, the Open Door. The Open Door is out of Camrose. They provide youth, adults, and families with services and taking more of an wraparound approach. So they are, the Open Door had come to FCSS to just share with us what they could offer in our community. And from there, we had a meeting with them, and actually they're going to be working with our youth in our community through our after hours program and also our junior leadership program as well. So coming out during the summer, building a relationship with those kiddos, and then in the fall, potentially taking over our after hours program, and FCSS taking more of a back seat or a supportive role in that program moving forward. So we're going to see how this summer goes. The important thing is that Open Door can build that relationship with those kiddos because Latanya did a lot of work to get them where they're at. And build that trusting relationship. So as long as Open Door is able to do that, we're willing to then have them come and take over that program moving forward, which of course is really all about what FCSS does in the community. We get these programs started, and then we hand them over to different agencies or different organizations that specialize in that area, and then that gives us time to start up new programs in the community. We do have a report, so I'm going to move on to the Community Connect and Learn, that regional nonprofit development day of learning that we had. That was a really huge, it was a great success for our community. We had 107 participants that came out, nonprofits from across our region, and 5 different partners that came to the table. So we were really pleased with that and had fantastic survey results from that. So they have decided, this region has decided that they're going to move forward and make this an annual conference, I guess, day of learning. And they're just a few things that they're going to incorporate or talk about moving forward. One is including more networking time. So that's something some feedback that we got from the participants was they just needed more time together. We had back-to-back learning opportunities, which was fabulous. But they really want that time to be able to connect, and then connect with nonprofits within their community. So, and more opportunity to move around the room and have those conversations. So we're excited to move forward, and the planning will start in September, and then hoping to host a little bit earlier in April. We're thinking next year, so, which is very fitting because that's Volunteer Appreciation Month. Yeah.
Just a quick question with that. Are you planning to always do it in Vegreville, or are we going to jump around to the other communities?
Yeah, they're talking about that, moving it around. Yeah, within the region, and actually expanding and inviting other FCSSs within our region, within East Central, to join if they'd like. So, yeah. So I'll move on to my staffing update. I think most of you know that I have 2 staff that are either on mat leave or leaving on mat leave. So right now we're hopeful that we'll be able to fill those positions over the next month or sooner if we can. We are in the process of interviewing for the office administrator. Our office administrator, we are moving into one of the mat leave positions, the community development facilitators position. It was about building capacity within our department. So moving that person into that position, they're already familiar with the programs. Of course, it's short term. It's a mat leave. So Anna is a lot more familiar with the programs, the services. She feels quite confident that she'll be able to deliver the services that Elizabeth has been offering up to this point. And they've been able to, over the last 6 weeks, been able to do that transition. So it's worked out really nicely in our office. So Anna can actually now work on training or work with that individual that's going to be taking the office administrator position. So that's our plan moving forward, but our team is really confident that if we don't find somebody right away, they'd rather have the right person in our office and in the position than just filling it and not having the person with the appropriate skill set for working in our office. So we put a note here that we're seeing a reduced grant funding, and that seems to be across the board. A couple of our grants, we are being approved, but approved for less money. And as a result of that, it's actually causing some burnout because the expectation is still the same. The deliverables are still the same, but the funding has been reduced just enough that we don't want to say no because we don't want to lose that grant money in our community. But at the same time, it just means a lot of more work for us. The reporting's the same, managing the grant is the same, but it's just, it's a little bit less money. So, which is, we have to make some choices moving forward. As a manager, I think it's always my goal to make sure that we're accessing funds whenever possible, but then now I'm learning that we really have to think about, are we doing ourselves a favor by taking less money and having to do the same amount of work? So those are conversations that we are having in our office as well. So I do have a section here just keeping the conversation going, and those are the asks that we have during this quarter from council, is just to keep those in mind when you're having those conversations with the ministers or anybody maybe within your region, with your colleagues, just around access to service, maybe finding out if other areas are finding that they're struggling with that as well. We hear that in East Central. We talk about that a lot within FCSS, but maybe at your tables you might be able to have those conversations too around access to service. Also, gaps in social supports. We are in need of a crisis worker in our rural community, and not just one that swoops in for a day or two or a couple of hours, virtual or over the phone, but somebody in person, full-time, in our community that is willing to work with individuals that are in crisis and be able to not just have a one-off conversation with them, but also have that warm handoff to other services in the community. So that is something that we are continually advocating for. In fact, we applied for a grant through mental health to have a crisis worker full-time in our community. The Crisis Association had the Crisis Intervention Grant, and they had hired somebody that was part-time, but they weren't able to meet the need with a part-time person. So, and it was just a revolving door of people going like in that position. So we did take that grant and we put it more into immediate emergency services or needs, accommodations, transportation, and food, just because with 23,000, you can't hire anybody to work, especially after hours. So that is something that we're continually advocating for, and also have, like I said, put in that proposal for somebody full-time in our community. And then also the social worker as well. So just having a social worker at the hospital that is able to provide the in-person services as well. So that's just like the crisis worker, somebody who's able to then meet with the individual at the hospital and be able to then set them up and do that warm handoff to other services in the community. So moving on to our FCSS program updates, you can see that we've got some stats there for the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. Also, we did apply for the COIN grant, which is really actually it's a great opportunity for us to recoup some of our expenses for that program. So in the end, it really doesn't cost FCSS any money. We're able to apply for our coordinators' wages as well through that. So we're able to get, I think, about $4,500 for that grant. So I think that's very. I think that does cover off our costs to provide that program in the community. And plus, we do have quite a few volunteers that helped to run that program. So we're very fortunate for that. The summer, our Sizzling Summer program, we have, so there's two parts to the Sizzling Summer program. We have the Sizzling Summer part where kids can come and it's like a day camp for kids. But then also there's the other part, which is the Junior Leadership Program. And that we are targeting 12 to 15-year-olds, so those kiddos that are kind of in between being in a day camp and then getting full-time employment. And so that program is all about building skills, including employment skills with our kiddos, our tweens. And this year we had over 20 junior leader applications come in, and yeah, which is fabulous. And we do an interview process with these kids. They come in and it's a very short interview, but it's all about building those employment skills and getting them prepared for when they do have to go out and apply for jobs. And so far, I think we've done 10 or more interviews, and I think we have 6 or 8 that will qualify to be in the program. So that's really exciting. Meals on Wheels, that program is taking off The need is, for the first time since I've started at FCSS, we've been having the conversation about whether we can actually keep up with the need in our community. So even the hospital is saying, like, that this is a lot of meals. Like there has been an increase in individuals wanting the frozen meals for on the weekends, and which is great. And so we're having that conversation, like I said, in our community in our office around what we can do to keep up with the need for the Meals on Wheels program. So the last thing that I'll give an update on is just the Kalena FRN. So during the last quarter, our programs have been at full capacity. So that's really good news. All of our programs, especially our baby talk, like lots of babies in our community, and right now, which is great to see that they're coming out and accessing these services. And of course, it's all about fostering and building those relationships and that peer support. So our baby talk is wrapping up right away here, but we have a parent in that baby talk group that has said, I'm going to continue on this baby talk at my home, in my home for the summer. So that was like a big win for the FRN, because that's really what it's all about, is not necessarily families coming to the FRN and just meeting there, but building those lasting relationships outside of the center, those natural supports. So that was a big win for that group and for the FRN. We also had built a partnership with the multicultural health brokers, offering services, counseling services in Vegreville, and they're actually offering in-person counseling services to families in Vegreville at this time. So the multicultural health brokers are specifically serving immigrants and children of immigrants. So they have any referrals are specifically for immigrants, like I said, and children of immigrants. They also hosted a training session on understanding newcomers' perspective, and that they opened it up within the FRN, and it filled up immediately. There was 30 spots, and Yulia actually had to close it because we had an overwhelming response of individuals or service providers that wanted to be involved and take this training. So there is an opportunity to even go back to them and see if they could offer it again, and even the FRN to offer that, provincial FRN to offer that. So that was a well-received program in our community. Also, the FRN has developed a new website, so they're hoping to launch that in August, and that will be for the whole network. So the Kalena FRN network, having that website for the whole network, so you'll be able to go on there and learn a little bit more about the staff, the programs and services that each one of them offer, and how you can, and all the contact information. So that'll all be there. And that is what I have for you today.
Well, thank you. Is there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wella.
The one question is not specifically programming, is more an advocacy question that you had mentioned. When it comes to, I know you guys source a lot of different grants over and above the base funding that you'd get from the province, but when it comes to that provincial funding that you guys get yearly and they redo, do they give you pre-notice? I'm just wondering what time of year we find out, because I'm always finding a little bit interesting that with some of the provincial monies that come forward, often people find out what they're getting well after we've had to pass our budgets. And so I just wondered how it works with this one, if you knew roughly, approximately when in the year you find out what next year's contribution would be.
Yeah, they've already told us that it's staying the same, that we're not seeing any, we find out usually around the conference time, so in November, we find out for the following year, especially because they're having conversations about advocacy around increasing those dollars, but I think that even though it's not said, we all have an understanding of what that funding model looks like moving forward. And then at that point, we are constantly advocating for more. So when they say, oh, you know, we won't see an increase this year, or we're hoping to keep the, like, FCSS is so tricky because we've been around for, 60 years, and you know, Lori used to say to me, oh, the FCSS is like the bad child in government. It's like so many times they've threatened to cut us or, actually dissolve the whole program, the FCSS model, but yet we always come back, and we come back even stronger. And so I think that it always seems to be on the table,
But I am glad you're at least getting notification, because unfortunately we have seen with some other programs and whatnot that they're not finding out into past the January of the year they're already in, sometimes what their funding is. And it's a little bit difficult when provinces are asking the towns to pass their budgets prior to the December, if we don't always know what those funding are. So I certainly know we need to advocate for more,
Yes.
but I appreciate that at least you are finding it out prior to us, technically.
Yeah. I think it's just the conversation is happening. I don't know if it's like a definite, like you're not getting cut or you are getting cut or anything. I think we just know collectively where we're at, and that we're always advocating for more, but we kind of know where we stand, for the most part. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
And thanks for the presentation, Julie. It's good to know we have you in our community and FCSS and all these programs for all our families. Being at capacity in a lot of these programs, have we been turning away a lot of people, or
We don't have a waiting list.
no waiting list?
No.
Okay.
No, they're just, there's some days, and it goes through ebbs and flows, but during the last quarter, and we see that quite often, especially in the FRN, is this in the spring, we see a lot of families come out, and that's pretty consistent. And I think a lot of programs and agencies in the community see the same thing. We do see families are coming out a little bit more. They're participating in a lot of the services, but we'll, and then in the summer, it goes down a little bit, right? Because families are busy, they're out at the parks, they're getting together with friends and families. So we'll see if that carries on through the summer. But as of right now, we don't have a waiting list. And if we do, it would be a very short waiting list. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Julie. That was it's good. I'm happy to hear that there's a lot of interest in the junior leaders for the Sizzling Summer. I think that's very important, which could translate into leaders of that camp potentially too one day in the future.
It's so fun to see that these kids are participants in the program, and then they go through the junior leadership program, and then they're in my office applying for jobs. Or they're practicum students that are coming back and wanting to be the leaders in the paid positions. That is just, I don't know, just warms my heart to see that, they're going through right from the beginning, right to the end.
And exactly. And the other question I had was about the Meals on Wheels. It
Yeah.
was mentioned here about the containers. Is there an issue there? We're not going to have...
So like there's a little bit of a backstory there. So during COVID, so we had those big styrofoam containers, and everybody, like volunteers they didn't know any different, right? But then during COVID, we moved to just a paper bag. And that was so much easier to handle for volunteers. So, but then the health inspector did a report and had said we needed to go back to the big containers because of, to keep the meals warm, because of how long it takes because of the time that they are packed and the time that they actually are delivered to someone's house is a little bit too long now that we have all these meals. So it was just around the increase in meals and the increase in need created more time between the time that it was packaged and the time that it was delivered. So now we have to go back to the thermal packaging. And so we're looking at something a little bit different, because now that we've gone back to the big ones again, the volunteers are like, these are really, I don't know if any of you have seen them or have had the opportunity to deliver these meals, but these containers are like this. So when you have up to 20 meals, it can take up like your whole back seat.
They are quite large. Yeah.
They are large, right? Yeah.
Sometimes there's quite a bit of food in there too, and they're all
Yeah.
individual.
So we're having conversations with the hospital around getting something a little more compact approved, and we're looking at like a skip the dishes bag, something like that, where we can go back to the paper bags, put them all in there, keep them warm, and then just take out the paper bag and deliver it to somebody's house. So.
And then just with the amount, like, is the hospital concerned they won't be able to keep up with the amount?
They're starting to have that conversation with us, but they have in no way said we're not able to. But I think they are concerned if our numbers increased even more, if the need was there, and because they just simply I don't think they have the room in their kitchen, and it's more around those frozen meals than it is around the prepared meals that are delivered, but more the space for frozen meals that they're having to store. So, because they want to have a variety of meals. They don't want, because they could knock out the same meal, but they also want to have a variety for these clients. It's mostly because how much they care, right, about the quality of the meals that they're delivering or that they're providing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? No? Well, I'd like to just add a little bit here, Julie. I think that what your staff are doing yourself is really needed in the community. The Meals on Wheels, I agree. I think that's an important service, and I think that it takes a lot of volunteer effort to it. And I hope that you can continue to get the support through the community to follow up on that. On the funding, I echo your needs in the terms of, we've always said that the provincial government has to step up and do a better job of providing services to the citizens. And I will say that every Alberta Munis that I've attended, somebody has always stepped up and asked that question. But they seem to be reluctant to keep funding to the level that they really need to. So I really appreciate your report. I think it was very detailed, and keep up the good work, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. One of the positive things I think that I always think about when our funding is slightly reduced is that in a rural community, we become a lot more resourceful as a result of that. So we reach out to our partners, our agencies, and we work a lot more collaboratively when we are short resources in our community. So, even though maybe our funding is decreased, I feel like that our office is able, because of the strong partnerships we have with other agencies in Vegreville and surrounding area, that we're able to be resourceful, and that it's not really impacting the services that we're providing at this time. For example, Open Door coming to Vegreville. We're now working with the RCMP through the public safety program. Here it is, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Branch, bringing them out to the community to see if we can do mapping projects to work on some advocacy in some of the gaps in our community. So it really pushes us to be a lot more resourceful, and I think that's a really great thing too.
I think where I was looking at where you say that we need some more caseworkers, where we need more provincial aid in mental health care and those areas that are definitely provincial, and it would be nice to see them supporting that a little bit more in all rural communities.
Agreed.
So
Thank you.
thank you for your report, and I guess that'll move us on to the next item on the agenda, where we have Jameson Brown, Community Engagement and Economic Development Manager. I believe you have some correspondence.
I do indeed. Thank you very much, Councillor. This is a letter that was addressed to Town Mayor and Council and submitted on Friday, June 14th. The Vegreville Agriculture Society requests that electrical power be made available at the Elks Gazebo in the Pesica Park for the benefit of musicians performing there during the summer. The Vegreville Ag Society holds Pesica markets every Thursday from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. each summer, and the dates for the 2024 calendar are from June 20th to August 29th. Musicians need covered shelter for weather protection and 110-volt electrical power to amplify their microphones and instruments to entertain attendees. This helps the overall enjoyment of the Pesica markets and at other special occasions at the Pesica Park during the summer. In the past, musicians have carried in or parked nearby a portable generator or battery-powered inverter to supply this power, which adds to the equipment that needs to be brought to the gazebo. We understand that the town has provided electrical power to the nearby pathway for lighting of trees, and through a recent conversation by Don Hartfield, who is one of the directors, with Michelle Gladys, we understand that other places within the park may also be provided power soon. We offer a couple of suggestions for your consideration. The town provide an electrical power cable from the existing power outlet over to the gazebo until a power outlet is provided at the Elks donated gazebo. The cable could be flagged with orange caution tape to alert passers-by of a potential tripping hazard, which may be a liability concern. The second suggested comment here is that the town provide a dedicated power outlet at the Elks donated gazebo for special events such as the Pesica markets during the summer months. Thank you for this consideration. Don Hartfield, Director, Vegreville Agricultural Society. And Council, if I may, just a little bit of context and backstory to this email. It was last week that Mr. Hartfield had requested power at the Elks Gazebo, specifically for the musicians performing during the Pesica Park markets. And the initial request was that they would string that the town would provide an extension cord that would string to the newly installed, this was last year, the power outlet that is supplying power to the trees. Initially, I was concerned that that would be quite the jaunt, and the cable would have to be quite long, and it would certainly present a tripping hazard during what can be a busy market. So we said, no, we don't want to do that. We then went back and we took a look, and it's not quite as long of a hike as we thought, still about 30 feet. So we went back to Mr. Hartfield and said, if the Ag Society can provide their own extension cord, and provided that they've got some weighted mats or some pylons or something to identify that there is a cord there, you can certainly feel free to use the power. And I'm not sure. I believe this letter was submitted in between the two conversations that we had with Mr. Hartfield. He is still, though, I think, requesting that the town provide the extension cord and the town be the ones who indicate that this could be a tripping hazard. So, for your consideration.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, I'm going to take you back a few years, probably to before I was on council, and I was involved heavily in the market and stuff like that. And there was actually plans, I remember, to actually have the power trenched to where the gazebo used to be, but the gazebo didn't exist at that point. And it just didn't happen because of that, because I heard some discussion of the gazebo might be here, might be there, and it was just held up at that time. That was under a different community services director at the time, and different Parks and Rec manager. So there was backstory on that. That almost happened, but there wasn't a gazebo at that time. I think it's very important that they have power out at that gazebo for functions and stuff like that, not only for the market, but any other function we're gonna have out there, sound systems and stuff. So it would definitely be something good to consider for the community and making that park even better than it is.
Thank you. Any other? Thank you. Councillor Rudick.
You go first.
I'll go, sorry, I'm just trying to get my bearings straight. This gazebo is the one behind the caboose?
Yeah, it's slightly to the, if you're looking at, you know, the direction of the Visitor Information Center, you've got the caboose, and then just slightly to the right of the caboose is the newly installed gazebo. And from there, as referenced, it's about a 30-foot jaunt to where we installed the power outlet for the lights on the trees along the walking path. So it's probably important to note as well that this cord wouldn't go over the walking path, but it would still be, you know, 30 feet of a stretch to get from point A to point B as it's right now.
Oh, just, thank you.
Councillor Rudick this time.
Yeah, and far be it for me to presume that I know how best to put in power, but I actually thought that there was supposed to be power originally when it was put in. Was there connection for the coop that was there previously, or was that by cord as well?
The connection for Baba's Coop goes the other way. So the gazebo, we actually measured out both. And that would be about 45 to 50 feet to get to the power onto the other side of the caboose. So I can't speak to what the plans were in terms of generating power at the gazebo, because these were plans that were in place prior to my being involved in this project. Now, obviously, as Mr. Hartfield noted in his letter, you know, this is an ongoing project and plan in terms of trying to powerize this park. That's one thing that we've realized that we're woefully lacking in today's day and age. People need power if we're going to have events there. But this year focus turned to over at the mini golf site, and we're actually underway with that project as we speak. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to bring power there, but it's also, you know, depending on the extent, you're probably looking at, you know, $3,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 to trench, to bring the power over, to install, right? So it isn't a simple, let's just get it done this week type thing either.
Councillor Bullock.
I can add to the backstory a little bit more. When Baba's best coop was being put in there, they were supposed to trench completely at one time, right from the visitor center all the way down there and continue on to where the gazebo supposedly was supposed to be. It was just at that time they didn't know where the gazebo would end up. So that's why, from my understanding, that's why it wasn't done. So that's just something I think we need to consider and probably get a price on what it would cost to trench it in.
Okay, so what I can see here, it would be feasible for them for this year through them providing a proper extension cord and marking that cord so that it isn't a trip hazard. And I guess there would be the option whether they're going 30 feet one direction or 45 feet the other direction, which would probably be something we'd have to consider as to which is favorable. But at this point, we can't look at trenching, because I think that's, if you're saying 5,000-6,000, would start to roll into a budget item. So I think that could be brought forward to look at this coming budget in the fall as to what prospects, and then we'd have to debate that as part of the budget. I think that it would seem that it's being fair to say if they provide their cord and block it off, that they can use the power. But it's impossible to trench it at this time.
Certainly, Councillor, we'll respond back to Mr. Hartfield and instruct them that they can feel free, and my staff over at the Visitor Information Center can assist. Our major concern was once it's your cord and once you're responsible for marking, it's the liability, then, you know, it would be best, and I think to go as you've suggested, that they provide the cord for this endeavor. And as we've referenced and as we've talked about over the last, you know, couple of years, the plan is to have more power there, and that certainly could be. We'll finish the project near mini golf, and this year, the next coming year, could be over near that gazebo, because we'd like to have Christmas lights in that neck of the woods and power in that neck of the woods as well. So,
Councillor Riddick.
So what I was going to ask is that delaying it to budget time, I understand there needs to be a bigger consideration, but if it was something that was required sooner, I'm quite certain that that's something that could happen in fairly short order. But I guess if there are other considerations with future power to make sure that we do it all at one time, because this is kind of where I think like the planning and to be fair, the gazebo was delayed a couple times from the original ask, which is why I think some of these other plans kind of got lost over time. So whatever we're doing, if we're delaying and considering further, I think it would be nice to be able to have like an overarching plan about what we're going to do down there, because I think piecing things together over time isn't going to do us any good over the long term. So I'd prefer to be able to consider a bigger picture, no different than how we approach the paving and making sure that we progressively improve the area.
We can absolutely do that. One of the reasons why we do it in piecemeal too is to ensure we're doing as little, we're taking away as little of the park as possible too, right? You know, because every time you're trenching, you're going to be blocking off a section for probably a week while they lay the cord, and you know. So what we can do is we'll get back to the Ag Society, and is it council's request then that prior to budget we bring you a plan in terms of where we would like to see the power laid out and some general costs, or is this a budget item that you would like to see in this coming budget? Just so I have clarity moving forward. We can put together the plan to ensure it's all done in one fell swoop, or to see if there is the appetite of council to have it done in one fell swoop. And I can do it before budget or during. It's entirely up to you, but I just would like to have some clarification.
I would agree that it would be nice if we could put the power there right now, because there's multiple uses, but I also take a look at it and saying that's just another piecemeal, and we've got to find, it's rob Peter to pay Paul, because we've already set a budget, and we'd have to try and figure out where that money would be coming from to try and get a company in there and dredge it now. So I think that I agree with the overall planning, even if it was in a couple of phases, but if we could see where we're trying to put the power and what that plan is going to involve, maybe it's another 2-year plan. We'll get this done this year, we'll get that done next year. Because we're going to have to, I still think that it's going to tie up enough manpower, budget, et cetera, to make it more appropriate a budget item.
Understood. I'll put together a plan so you're aware, and at least then we've got it down on paper where, to Councillor Rudick's point, there is that consistency from personnel to personnel or project to project where this has been done and it's on paper in terms of where we're going to next.
Go ahead, Councillor Wilwood.
Well, and I think, I mean, if you were to magically find out that this is a very quick and easy fix, I would be happy to have it come back, because we're sitting here suggesting it's a 5,000 or 6,000. Maybe we find out we're like 30 feet. I feel like this is about a $2,000 project. So if we find that out, for some reason, bring it back to us. But I would say we need to implement that at all times for all of our items going forward. Gone are the days in a way of having gazebos or structures that aren't powered. They weren't at one time, but that's not a thing anymore. Everybody wants to either put a light, wants to have music, they want to run something. So exactly, and that's actually another part of the consideration. I've gone to very few parks nowadays that you don't have a charging station at some spots. So I think that's just a great thing to suggest goes forward, is that we now remember, if we're going to move forward saying we're progressive and we're doing all these items, we've got to start incorporating that in all our plans. So, but by all means, if it comes forward sooner, it would be great, because I'm one who always looks, our busy time is the summer. And part of me hates to suggest that $2,000 or $3,000 puts us into a whole year away, when we could be doing things over the winter with it, we could potentially be. So if something comes up, please bring it forward.
Understood.
by cord, et cetera. But if you could take and look at it, maybe trenching from the Vic over to there might be the least disruptive. If you could estimate that and get an idea of it, bring it back to us and give us a crack at knowing what could be done now. Otherwise, then it would become a budget item.
Okay, we have we're presently working on the powering over at the mini golf, so now's a decent time to at the very least get a more educated quote, and I will keep you abreast of the situation.
Okay, we'll move on then. And Director Lefay, Infrastructure and Planning and Development, I believe you have some correspondence.
I do, thank you. Dear Tim McPhee and members of council, this is a letter from the Vegreville Kinsman Golf Club. The Jim Nickel, the member of the golf club, has written, I am writing on behalf of the Vegreville Kinsman Golf Club to formally request an in-kind donation from the town of Vegreville of up to $3,000 worth of equipment rental use per year at our golf course. This donation would be greatly benefit our club and enhance the overall golfing experience for our members. In the past, the Vegreville Kinsman Golf Club has sent correspondence requesting a similar donation, and we have always appreciated the support and cooperation of the town in providing us with essential equipment for our operations. This donation would allow us to maintain and improve our golf course. We kindly ask for your consideration and approval of this request, as it would greatly contribute to the success and sustainability of the Vegreville Kinsman Golf Club. Your support is invaluable to us, and we are grateful for the ongoing partnership between our club and the town of Vegreville. If you require any additional information or have any questions regarding this request, please do not hesitate to contact me. We are more than willing to provide any necessary documentation or clarification. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. We look forward to your favorable response and continued collaboration with the town of Vegreville. Sincerely, Jim Nickel, Vegreville Kinsman Golf Club.
Thank you. I will ask for any questions and remarks as I turn it back over to His Worship, the Mayor, who has joined us.
Hello, everyone, and sorry I'm late. Got held up at the ledge, so we're talking about the request for in kind.
For $3,000 in kind from the Vegreville Kinsman Golf Club from the town, and it would be based on the town's equipment and rental rates guide that we have approved by council.
Have we had this type of arrangement in the past?
We have had this type of arrangement in the past. It was quite several years ago, but it was an annual thing that they would request, and the town in that time would approve it. And then if they needed a grader, a backhoe, something out there to give them a hand, we'd keep a running tally of the hours based on the rental rates. And then when they would get up to $3,000 a year.
Right. Anybody got any questions regarding the letter? Sure, go ahead.
Is this, I don't know if anybody's spoken with a golf course. I'm just curious, what kind of equipment are they looking for? Is this year-round? Like, I'm assuming even in the past when we've done snow clearing, for example, it's sometimes been between the county and the town, whatever equipment's going to work best at that time.
In the past, well, right now what they've asked for is the backhoe to clear a culvert out between, right at the start of hole number 2. There's an issue, they need it dug out and a culvert. They did ask the town if we had any culverts we could donate, and the county is more culvert based than we are, so I suggested they contact the county for a culvert. And then instead of asking for one-offs every time they need some equipment, I suggested that in the past, what was happening was this, where they would just ask for a set amount of dollars towards an in-kind for equipment rental rates, and then I could distribute with whatever managers in charge of that equipment what worked for our schedule, instead of going to the CAO on a one-off every time basis when they needed something.
Keep going.
In follow-up then, I appreciate that they've requested, and I appreciate that we've got a record of who we're supporting and how we're supporting to be able to keep track of that. I mean, we had attempted to do that with community services to be able to quantify the support that we provide to community groups, and I appreciate that we were able to keep track of this.
Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
I think we've been good with other community groups, supporting them with in-kind services as well, and this is another group that does a lot of things for Vegreville and, recreation for people around Vegreville, and I feel it's important that we support in an in-kind way. I think it's something we can do.
Okay, so this letter will come to Monday's meeting?
That is correct.
Excellent. No other comments? Okay, thank you very much, Director Lefebvre. Next up, CAO Ling.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. In front of you is a memo to council regarding a draft bylaw. It's a mass repeal bylaw. So in 2023, Legislative Services compiled a bylaw index consisting of all the Town of Vegreville bylaws from 1912 to present. This index has allowed Legislative Services and the senior management team to identify numerous bylaws that are either no longer enforced or superseded by current bylaws. The MGA Section 63A allows council to pass a bylaw for the repeal of bylaws that are considered inoperative, obsolete, expired, spent, or otherwise ineffective. Schedule A of the draft bylaw lists a total of 101 bylaws that may be repealed by town council. If passed, Legislative Services will update bylaw index to reflect all repealed and active bylaws. So the options before council today are to review the draft bylaw for discussion at the next legislative committee meeting held on July 9th, or discuss the draft bylaw today at today's legislative committee meeting and complete all 3 readings for the bylaw at the next council meeting held on June 24th, or to forego review of the draft bylaw and retain all bylaws listed under Schedule A.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
I had a read over of the list, and some of it seemed entertaining. I would like, however, just to have access to those bylaws and to go through some of them quickly and stuff, so I'd like the opportunity to view some of the bylaws, that's all. And just whether it's in a council document form or not necessarily emailed, but just in council docs, that would be fine.
CAO Ling, so these bylaws are still in effect right now today?
Yes, they're still in effect, and you'll see that there's quite a few of them that are amending bylaws. So what happens when prior to there being a bylaw index, when we would repeal bylaws as they're rewritten, the amending bylaw gets missed. So there's a few of them that are amending bylaws that no longer exist too.
Councillor Rudick.
Thanks for bringing this forward and being comprehensive. There's a couple in here maybe we need to bring back, like the sale of bread, the milk container, or the half-week holiday. There's a few in here that seem like maybe we want to bring them back.
The weekly half holiday would be a really big hit.
Yeah. So maybe there might be, in the interests of zhuzhing up some of the bylaw repeal, which sounds ominous and scary, maybe if there's anything that's interesting and worth sharing with our public, maybe that would be kind of fun. But otherwise, I appreciate, and I'm a little alarmed that we had so many that were still in the books, and thanks for being comprehensive and making sure that we're cleaning things up.
We have a number of amending bylaws.
Lots, yeah.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I had a flashback here on reading a number of these. In my previous job, we would stack up fisheries regulations and stack them up in amendments, and every so often we would have to stop and consolidate everything so that we would have one bylaw or one regulation that kind of covered all of the ones that fell through. The ones that got me as well is I grew up where milk was delivered to my home in the 40s, 50s, and seeing that it requires to be pasteurized, seeing that it should be sold in the original container, I brought that up to Councillor Bullock, and he asked me, do you mean the cow? So there are some here that go back into my era of the 50s, and they may have seemed sensible at that time, but maybe they need to be forgotten now. Thank you.
Okay, so is council fine that we just leave this until July the 9th? And then we'll go through it if there's anything that seems critical that shouldn't be repealed?
Sure.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Okay. You got a letter from Rick, Minister McIver.
Okay, this letter is from Minister McIver, Minister of Municipal Affairs. Dear Chief Elected Officials, the Government of Alberta administers federal funding through the Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF, to provide Alberta communities with flexible capital funding to invest in local infrastructure priorities. As you may be aware, the Canadian-Alberta Agreement for the CCBF for 2014 to 2024 expired on March 31st, 2024. The Alberta government is in active negotiations with the Government of Canada on a 10-year renewal agreement that will cover the 2024 to 2034 period. The Government of Canada sent a draft renewal agreement to Alberta in late 2023, and the agreement has several aspects that are concerning for Alberta and for local governments. As a result, we are standing up for the interests of Alberta in negotiations and doing our utmost to ensure funding continues to flow to local governments with as much flexibility as possible to address local priorities without unnecessary administrative burdens. As these negotiations are ongoing, there may be delays in the 2024 program, including the notification of allocation amounts and timing of payments to local governments. As discussions with the federal government continue, we are working with the municipal associations to ensure the Alberta government understands the perspectives of local governments. We will continue to advocate for your interests and in the interests of the province, and I will provide more information on the signing of the agreement as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding and patience during this renewal process. Sincerely, Rick McIver, Minister.
Yeah. Any comments? So we may be looking at some delays in those payments. Go ahead, Councilor Rivers.
I'm glad that Minister McIver informed us. Other provinces have already agreed. So hopefully this happens quickly because we rely on CCBF. This is an important, easy fund to be able to utilize to do lots of important work. Hopefully the province is able to get through these negotiations quickly. And if we have a chance to be able to remind the minister how important this is, maybe that's something we can do.
Okay. We'll just hold tight and see what's going to come of it, I guess. Okay, next up is me. Okay, so we received a letter from the Royal Canadian Legion.
I have one more, Your Worship.
Oh, did you? Oh, yes, on the back side. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, this next item is again from the Municipal Services Division of Municipal Affairs. It is an email that I received. It says, writing to inform you of a potential opportunity for municipal councils to meet with Honorable Rick McIver, Minister of Municipal Affairs, at the Alberta Munis Fall 2024 convention scheduled to take place at the Westerner Park in Red Deer on September 25th to 27th, 2024. Should your council wish to meet with Minister McIver during the convention, please submit a request by email with potential topics for discussion no later than July 12th. And of course, they generally receive more requests than can be reasonably accommodated over the course of the convention. Requests which meet the following criteria will be given priority for meetings during the convention. So municipalities that identify up to 3 discussion topics related to policies or issues directly relevant to the Minister of Municipal Affairs in the department. Municipalities located within the capital region can more easily be accommodated throughout the year, so priority will be given to requests from municipalities at a distance. And meeting requests received after the deadline will not be considered for the convention. Meeting times with the minister are scheduled for approximately 15 minutes, and as this allows the minister to engage with as many councils as possible. So I am asking council if they would like us to submit a request to meet with Minister MacGyver during the fall convention, and if so, if you can get some topics for us by the July 9th legislative committee meeting, our next committee meeting, we'll be able to send it in time.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, well, I just left a meeting with Minister MacIver, and I arranged it within a week. If we had something that we needed to talk to about 15 minutes, and just a lineup.
Barely say hello.
Yeah, line up to get into a Hall C3, I don't think is really what we need. So I don't, if we have any pressing issues with Minister MacIver, I'm sure that we could arrange a meeting with him long before that.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now it's my turn, eh? Okay. We received a letter from the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 39 of Vegreville. Dear Mayor McPhee and Council, this letter is to inform you that the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 39 Vegreville will be holding Declaration Day service at Riverside Cemetery on Sunday, June 23rd, from 2 p.m. to 2:40 at the Cenotaph in the Field of Honor. This ceremony will honor our veterans who are buried at Riverside, and we'll also be acknowledging those who are buried in the area cemeteries as well. You're all invited to be there as guests, and if the town of Vegreville wishes to designate someone to bring a brief greeting, please advise no later than June 17th. Any other members of council attending will be identified as invited guests if we are notified by the above date as well. The service will be followed by a lunch and comradeship at the Legion. Attendees are invited to join us for this as well. Further information will be included in advertising to be placed in the Vegreville News Advertiser issued June 12th and June 19th. Please advise Rod Stewart, event organizer, of any conditions or if someone wishes to speak at the event. Yours truly, Rod Stewart. Okay, so I think we have this handled, do we not, Leslie? And we've replied? Is there anybody else that will be attending? I can't. I'm going to be at the statue for the not incarceration, but yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have a letter from the town of Tofield. Now, this is a very long letter. Does anybody understand why they're writing to us about their minor hockey situation?
We do occasionally, our minor hockey does occasionally play league games with Tofield Minor Hockey, and they are usually invited to our tournaments because of the close proximity.
Great. Do you want me to read this letter? I mean, we've all read it. It's basically saying that the Minor Hockey Association wants to move to the Sherwood Park.
They are going to Strathcona.
Strathcona.
They are doing a year trial to see how it works, and if the trial is successful, then minor hockey in Tofield will basically cease to exist. My understanding is that the Vegreville Minor Hockey Association has already picked up some players from Tofield that are on the eastern side of Tofield and region, and they don't want to go into Strathcona. So it will have reaching effects. so this is more for information.
So I've seen that they've listed a number of Alberta hockey bylaws that they feel that the minor hockey has broken and stuff, so. This will be available on the website, this letter posted, because it's quite a long letter to read it all, and all the bylaws really doesn't.
Yeah, and it's currently, it can be found on our website under today's agenda. It's listed there, and, yeah, so I'm pretty sure that with ease of finding.
Okay, is there any comments? Okay, Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, the gist of the letter is more or less something that I don't think we can really be involved in, because I think this is of more concern to them. But I will echo the aspect that it will have ripplings here, because I know even in soccer, players from Viking area play in Vegreville soccer. So I would expect that those who don't want to go to Strathcona will come to the Vegreville minor hockey. So that's just, I think that it's a receive and file, and hope that they can do their best to what they need to do.
Councillor Warwell.
Well, I would kind of echo what the CEO said, that it's nice to be alerted of that, because sometimes when these dissolutions happen, you don't know they're coming, and they might help us for planning. We know that this, I mean, as far as their outreach, I don't believe they're going to have successful change with Hockey Alberta, because an association has an ability to come or go. They don't actually have to speak necessarily with the municipality. And unfortunately, one of the things that would happen there with the way the hockey is set up, it'd be very similar to what happened when Mandera made the decision to dissolve. They've got some very strong regulations around what happens. All players of that area won't get to choose to come. Actually, they have to contact all of the bordering associations. So in a case like that, if they make the decision to officially dissolve, because Tofield and I went through this with the Mandera one, because I was president of minor hockey, Tofield would have to alert Vegreville's minor hockey, and it becomes a negotiation with every community that touches the border. You go in with a representative of Hockey Alberta that helps distribute it, unless for some reason they're looking at dissolving, because some people believe that a group can just choose to go to Strathcona. That's not actually accurate. Strathcona doesn't get to just become Strathcona and themselves. Strathcona would have an ability to take in some of the players, but once they make a formal decision to dissolve, because the difference is if they tried to amalgamate the two, what would end up happening is Strathcona's borders then open up as well, and they would lose some from the outside edge. So I think it's good to be alerted, and it's maybe as well, I'm sure minor hockey knows about it, but by them alerting us, it gives us an opportunity to inform our minor hockey as well, you know, to be keeping an eye and seeing what age groups they think might impact them, because it's actually quite a daunting task for the minor hockey associations around them, because they have to basically go in with fighting words to fight for your borders, and sometimes you're fighting the bigger groups. So maybe it'll end up being some extra players. That would be good.
Okay. Will that be coming to Monday's meeting as well?
It can if you want, your worship, but it's not addressed to town council.
Yeah.
It's addressed to the town. We will file it, so it doesn't have to come down Monday.
Okay. So next up, we have a letter from Anton Pali. So, dear council members, I am writing on behalf of the Friends of Moscow School Historical Group. I was their first and only society president. The Friends celebrated at the original school site at the time of Alberta's 2005 centennial. The existence of the Moscow School that was built in 1905 but closed during the school centralization in 1955 with the County of Lamont. We were able to locate the original school sign at a neighborhood farmer's yard and were able to secure it for the group. It was restored and shown to many people that attended the celebration. With no place to store the sign, it was handed over to the Vegreville Regional Museum for future generations to see. I understand it is now located near the front entrance of the museum. It is with heavy hearts that we hear that with no further financial support from the town of Vegreville, council has decided to have the museum closed. On behalf of the very few remaining members of our group, we are requesting that we get first choice to retrieve the sign with plans to have it attached to the back side of the present school marker. The attached picture shows the school marker that was constructed at the original school site in 2005 with today's mature trees. The left portion provides a history of the school with all the trustees and teachers that managed and taught at the school respectively. The center names the site of the original school with its formal land location. The right side lists all the students that attended over the 50 years. The lower center portion is the group's 2005 executive list of all the donors and a few of the students that missed the main right side. As one of the only members that have maintained the site over many years, I believe it's one of the greatest school markers in the province. Your favorable attention to our request would be greatly appreciated. So I see that you were CC'd on here, Councillor Barry. Go ahead.
Actually, it was to myself and Councillor Rudick. So I was a little surprised to see it here. I have spoke with Anton more than once, and I received this, and I have communicated back to him that the sign indeed is at the front entrance, along with a copy of the history of the school, and I'm waiting for him to contact me so we can make arrangements for him to pick up the sign. There's no problem whatsoever with it going back to them, because that would be the appropriate thing for this sign, so that they can actually display it back at the original site. Now that they have the new signage and et cetera, they're in a position, and they've been working with the school, it's a now appropriate location for them to put up this sign. So yes, I will reach out to him one more time and make it available to him. One little correction. Council is not closing the museum. The Museum Society dissolved and closed the museum. We're deaccessioning the items. So I get that a lot right now, that council closed the museum, but we just have to do what we have to do. But I will reach out to Anton, as I have with a number of others, and see that they get this sign back.
Any other comments? I think it's fair that we recognize that Mr. Pally is right. There is no further financial support from the town for the museum, and Councillor Barry is right. They chose to close the museum. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have a letter from the Iron Runners. Dear Mayor Tim, my name is William Smolik, and I am the president of the Vegreville Iron Runners Auto Club. Our mandate is the preservation and appreciation of antique and classic collector vehicles. We meet on a monthly basis at our clubhouse at the Vegreville District Museum grounds, except for January and August. This year, Collector Car Club Appreciation Day has been set for Friday, July the 12th. The Iron Runner Auto Club would like to have you declare this day as Collector Car Appreciation Day, and then present us with a copy of this declaration. The presentation could be made while we are at the Homestead Lodge, see below. As part of our celebration of Collector Car Appreciation Day, we'll be bringing our collector cars to the Vegreville Homestead Lodge at 1:30 p.m., then the Vegreville Care Center at 2:30 p.m., followed by a visit to Century Park on July 12th. We will have our cars there until 3:30. After spending time with the seniors at these locations, we will proceed to our clubhouse on the museum grounds for our annual vehicle inspection and barbecue. It is our intention to promote our participation in the Collector Car Club Appreciation Day with a specialty vehicle association of Alberta in your local papers. We look forward to your anticipated support. Thank you. Okay, so I will not be able to do this one. I'm already got something else. Councillor Bullock, you could take care of this?
Yeah, as of being an avid car nut, I'll take this one. So.
Okay, so Leslie, you could get back to them, and it looks like they would like to meet you at 1:30 at the Homestead Lodge.
Okay, you bet.
Excellent, thank you very much.
A comment about Collect a Car Appreciation Day and the Antique Society, Antique Vehicle Society. So they advocate for classic cars and people who maintain them. So one of the inspection that they do is just to make sure their vehicles are in operating order, and they are inspected throughout clubs across Canada. So they make sure these cars are in operating order and safe to be on the road, which they usually are in the Collect a Car world. So, and they advocate for things like, like say leaded fuels or, methanol not in fuel because they cause detrimental effects to old fuel systems and stuff like that. So the Antique Club of Canada does a lot of things for this. So it's if you're in the Collect a Car world, and a lot of people like to see collector cars, it's a good thing to come out and see. So.
And I like the fact that this year they're moving it to some seniors' places.
That's nice.
That's nice. Okay. Okay, so next up, a round table, we'll start with Councilor Curtis.
Thank you very much. Nothing too much for me to speak on. I did attend the Ag Society's Father's Day events. Got to see some smash derbies and some burnouts and have some good food. And I did see Councillor Barry there as well volunteering. So shout out to Councillor Barry. It was good. It was well attended again. It seems just packed every year. There was two entrances, one by the social center, and I parked up on the west side, and I didn't know there was an entrance there, which had a lot less people. So I ended up walking all the way around and through the overflow and waiting half an hour in the lineup. And then when I left, I was just like right out into my car. So that'll be a mental note for me next time. But it was very well done. I think there was a few less cars in the Derby than there was in previous years, but there was still quite a few heats and some good food and some nice looking cars there. So excellent. Well, very well done.
Excellent. I was with some other municipal elected officials for most of the day, and two of them from other communities attended it as well. Councillor Riddick.
I have a couple things. Attended the Alberta Munis Municipal Leaders Caucus in St. Albert on Friday last week, and some good topics of conversation that relate to things that we're doing here with regards to water conservation, infrastructure funding, and there's a few things that we'll need to or I'll need some help with to be able to talk about, but some of the things that they're talking about is probably the same thing that you talked about.
I've already got our IP&D department
Good.
working on that. Yeah.
Good. I was going to say that some of the topics of conversation is how many infrastructure projects we've had to delay based on the decrease in funding for infrastructure funding. And while the LGFF replacing MSI is helpful, it's certainly not a big enough pot to be able to do all the things that we need to. But the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting for us to consider is water conservation, and even just using consistent messaging around the consumption per person. Kind of timely given the fact that when we were in Calgary with the water main break and the challenges that are arising right now with people perhaps not participating with the same level of attention to detail in terms of the amount of water that each person consumes and the goals for reducing water consumption, and some of the large users being industry, for example, and some inconsistency in measurement. And we pointed out to one of the presenters that we use cubic meters, and for example, it's been sort of drilled into my head that 15 cubes is about what an average household would use in the month, and they've referred repeatedly to 192 liters per day per person. And for those of us that are not familiar with cubes versus liters versus amounts, it's very hard to quantify that. And that's not a lot of water per person, particularly if you're talking about a regular flushed toilet. Flushing it 9 times a day, for example, is not a lot when you have multiple people living in your house. Anyways, that's the nuts and bolts of what we do as municipal leaders, and it was really good to be able to have some conversations and hear what's happening elsewhere in the province and how they're approaching this. The other thing that they talked about that I think will be important for us to discuss here is the assessment review model. hasn't been done for 20 years. And so they're looking at that and just reviewing it, the provinces. The challenge is that the majority of the people that are comprising the group that are doing this review are largely those that are private industry or subject matter experts and not actual municipalities or people. So while it's great that it's being reviewed, I'm not sure how much of a municipal voice or the average person might be considered in that assessment review. So just wonder how that'll intersect with, for us here in Vegreville, having the M&E tax pulled out and creating a different bylaw and a different tax bracket for M&E at the same time that this was one of the staff that works at FCM, and I'm no longer on FCM, but they're interested, they have contact from the United States State Department that works on projects in Ukraine. And so the U.S. State Department has created relationships between sister cities in the States and Ukraine, and they were wondering if we've done the same thing here. And of course, in Alberta, we've done that. We've got our own sister city, so kind of revived the conversation that we need to have in Vegreville with Kolomea and to be able to share some of that information with them. Because Global Affairs Canada is being asked by the Ukrainian embassy to be able to forward that conversation, particularly in making infrastructure and economic development revitalization in those areas. So that'll be an ongoing conversation, and that just reminded me that we'll need to be able to revive that conversation here and be able to share that information with them because they're looking for some examples of that happening. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure everybody is aware of how the assessment is done now, with the review, but it's an independent group that do large industry and lineal assessment and stuff, and it's not left. So municipalities have no say whatsoever, not that we have a lot in the assessment, but my phone was in my truck, I just realized that. Okay.
Recess to fix them.
What?
Oh, could recess to fix them.
The mics aren't working. Can we take a quick 2-minute recess to replug them?
Okay, time out.
They're lighting up, so they have to work.
Does my mic still work?
Yep.
I'm still part of the solution.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. We're back now, and we're just doing some roundtable with some counselors here, and we're going to go to Councillor Warwa.
I only had two. One is basically the weather sort of dictated the conversation. So, of course, we've had a lot of rain, which seemed to accelerate. Of course, you get into the grass and the dandelions, and it seems like we went straight from them popping up to hitting the fuzz stage already. So, just a little bit outreach on that because people are noticing that it was happening on the town lots as well, but on their lots that they're concerned, you know, that there are things like the weed notices, and they said they just noticed that everywhere is really hit by it, and I think it's because we had so much rain and there was just no time to address some of it. So I said that I would bring forward that some people were concerned that maybe their dandelions in their yards will have accelerated and they won't have had a great chance to deal with it. So that was one item. The other item kind of falls into, and I'll kind of bring more on it when we're doing our formal council reports, but had an opportunity to sit on a couple different meetings, and what they were talking about is some of the importance of letting our community residents sometimes know what is driving up the costs. So of course, at times for us, what drives up the costs is not necessarily additional spending, although we do hit things that with our projects with inflation that are costing us more, but sometimes it's also because we're receiving less funding that we would have before, and then we're making up a difference. So they were talking about like the real importance of different communities tracking where some of the changes in some of the costs have been so that that information gets out to the public. And in that, I ended up sitting in on a conversation that started for me through a work item, but ended up in a meeting later where a bunch of municipalities were talking about, for example, how they separated out and looking at the carbon tax. And that's an interesting thing sometimes to mention to people is that in looking at, say, how taxes or whatnot had gone up, that it isn't automatically because there hasn't been maybe even reduction in spending where the departments themselves are tightening up, but between inflation and items like carbon tax, it's impacting them. And two of the communities that shared very publicly some of their carbon tax I thought was quite interesting, one being bigger than us and one being a county, but I thought it might be kind of interesting to say there was the city of Lloydminster themselves had tracked just their carbon tax spending on only what they were calling their utility accounts. So water, wastewater, and ability to pump it out. And they have said they have spent in excess of $600,000 last year just on the carbon tax. St. Paul County also did one on the county level, which was kind of interesting because, of course, some of their push out would be different than a town would be, but they're dealing with a few small hamlets and different areas that were within. And they also showed in a 6-month time period over 90,000 just in the carbon tax. So I just think that was an interesting thing to, you know, bring forward is that sometimes some of these things that are hitting us aren't even always because the departments themselves aren't tightening up the belt. They are costs that we may be doing the same things as before, and they're just these extra costs that are going on. So I think as we, you know, go forward, the more tracking we can do of those types of things or real numbers on those items that are completely out of control might be good. Anyways, I'll see what more comes from that because supposedly there's supposed to be some just information sharing about how different communities of like sizes are being hit. So when I get that, I'll bring it back. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't think in the calculations the federal government does that they don't use that. So if it costs the town more, it goes on your taxes. But they don't capture that when they say about the real cost. Same as small business. Small businesses, large businesses don't get their carbon tax credit. So again, that's money that is being charged back to consumers that it doesn't say carbon tax, but we know they're recouping it, so.
And there was talk federally, sorry, just one thing to that, was talk federally about there being a municipal initiative that was going to come forward that was much like the climate change incentive to individuals. But so far it hasn't come, and I haven't seen it even through work in any format. So that's sort of what some municipalities are saying is, hey, we were hearing we were going to see this, and they're feeling exactly what you mentioned, that in a way it's not really captured what's costing individuals because those costs are going on to them over and above what they physically pay directly themselves through their own utility costs. But it's sometimes shocking to think that the numbers could go that quickly. So if you look at even a place like Lloydminster and they're only capturing that just for their utility department, and you apply that back here, we know that that would account for more than a mill rate increase if we had 600,000 on that. So it's interesting numbers sometimes to consider what makes up all of our budgets.
Well, thanks for the education.
You know it.
Councillor Bullock.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the positive things that I only have to say for this roundtable. So back on the 13th, Councillor Barry and Councillor Lemko and I were bartending at the Lobster Fest, and everything was hot and furious with the drinks there for a bit from before supper, and haven't spilled a few, but oh well. I've been known to spill a few before too. So anyways, it was a real fun evening. A lot of people looked like they had a great time, aside for watching the hockey game. So that part was the only disappointment. But and then on the weekend, also the Father's Day event, attended that, and actually it was interesting. Ran into a former resident of town that brought their kids here to the Father's Day event and enjoyed the day at the Ag Society grounds, but also went to enjoy a couple of our parks. And he said, boy, they have changed since he was a kid in town here, and he was quite impressed. He says, man, they're pretty neat. So that was good to hear that somebody that was in the community came back and noticed such a change, a positive change. He was really impressed by Pesca Park and also by where the outdoor rink is. He was very enthused about that. So I said, well, you can move back anytime. So.
I'll just let council know that the Rotary Club reached out to me and thanked us. It was a very well done job. And they asked what would be a good cause. They want to make a donation on behalf of council's work for $500. And I said, well, that gazebo you're building at the skate park, if you could put the $500 donation from council towards that. And they were very quite happy about it. So, okay, thank you very much. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Worship. I have two or three things. I want to jump in on the Father's Day thing as well for a moment. Having the opportunity to work at the gate during a very busy time, I realized just how many people actually come to that event and how many are from out of town. And it draws a lot of people into town. They're very enthusiastic about everything that's going on in there, so we got to give kudos out to the organizers that is a well-planned event and well-attended. And I probably didn't appreciate it until I had the opportunity to stand at the gate and really actually greet and see how many people are coming through there in rapid order. So I think that's really good. The other one is a interesting personal sort of a good news thing. As you realize that I spend still quite a bit of time out around the museum. And I was cleaning up in the back, and I had the back doors open because it was a nice day, and I was getting some fresh air in there when I heard a couple of hellos, and I turned around, and there's three ladies there. And they had come, and they told me that they had attended the park, Pasanka. They were from around here at one point in time, and they also were very impressed with all of the changes that were occurring in town. The main reason they came out to the museum is because, as everybody knows, that was a farmstead at one time before it became the Soil Research Station, and it was their ancestors that owned that land. And they lived in Vegreville. Two of them did. The other one was visiting from England. And they brought them out to Vegreville to show them the house they lived in Vegreville, some of the parks and et cetera, and then brought them out to the homestead because at one point in time the family donated a bench to the museum commemorating their grandparents who farmed that from way back when up until it became the research center. And they were concerned because they couldn't find the bench. And I said, describe it. So they described it, and I said, come with me. And we walked up to the front, and at the front door I said, I believe that's your bench. It's been indoors all the time, not outdoors, because it's wood and metal, so we've looked after it very well. So they were very pleased as I took pictures of them sitting on the bench, commemorating their old homestead, their grandfathers. And because it's a personal item that doesn't really belong to the museum, I'm going to be arranging with that family because they'd be very interested in taking it back to Edmonton. So in the future, we will be discussing. I have their contacts, et cetera. But in all, it was a very nice feeling that day to have so fortunately been there at the time they arrived. And it was just, just kind of a nice thing, because it was something that they would have been very disappointed in, but they were very happy. So the other thing I have to bring up, though, is the ball diamonds at the Ag Grounds. I happened to mention that I thought they were not going to be used in the future, which maybe I shouldn't have. But the Ag Society is asking me a couple of questions to bring forward. And what it is some of those who are playing there currently have understood that this might be their last year playing there or such, but they're actually blaming the Ag Society for closing it down, because they've been told that it was the Ag Society that made that decision. The Ag Society would like to get some official word as to the status of those ball diamonds, and so that they can actually plan, because they have received nothing officially from the town. It's just rumors that are floating around, and they're being blamed. The other part of that is that they would be curious as to what it does cost to maintain those diamonds if they were to consider maintaining them in the future and running the ball tournaments themselves, the slow pitch or whichever it is, just having them organized through the Ag Society to continue using those diamonds, but the fees would go to the Ag Society. So that's where they're coming from. If we could communicate to them officially where it stands, it's because I feel bad at having said at one time, I spoke out of turn, but they're also getting this from users that are asking questions. But there's nothing official said yet. Maybe there isn't any official word that can be said. But I've been tasked with asking the questions on their behalf. So if we could reach out to them and start a communication, and so that both sides are aware of what's taking place into the future as to just where the status is. They're not unhappy. It's just a matter of getting the information out. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And have we put out anything? Have we made a decision and announced a decision on, first of all, do we know how many teams are in the Vegreville Slow Pitch League? Are they expanding? Do we know?
When the Parks Recreation Facilities Manager met with the user groups of the Diamonds Minor Ball, the Slow Pitch Association and everything, the discussion was to close the diamonds, those 3 exhibition ground diamonds. As we had discussed, as had been discussed with council and stuff like that. The decision was made not to close them this year and give them a year, because Minor Ball needed to tweak some stuff, and the Slow Pitch Association just wanted some notification that this was going on. So for this year, they're using the diamonds. Now, this is just going on my memory of the conversation. I will get some more information from the Parks Rec and Facilities Manager to find out what type of communication was had with the Ag Society regarding those, and I can get him to find out that information.
Excellent. Okay, thank you all. Myself personally, I've had a lot of phone calls lately, and I'm working on a few issues with some people, so we'll leave it there for right now. Next up, Director Highlights. Director Lefebvre, you're up first.
Thank you, Worship. Got a few projects I wanted to get council caught up on. The landfill transfer station design, for example, it was 100% granted project. We are down to the road and site grading was just been completed. So now the document will be one more review, and then it'll be set with a pre-tender estimate and a package design that could go to tender council so chooses, either now or before budget or what we have. So that's just the final stages to take it to the tender portion that we had said we would do in the grant application. The new lift station, some of the masonry spring work is being completed now. The masonry bricks, where there were some issues, have been redone, replaced. They do have to come out and remove some brick on one of the doors. The steel doors was not set perfectly straight in the septic receiving station for access. So they're gonna remove the brick there, fix the door, and set it back up. Other than that, I think we did get all the electronic version of the operation and maintenance manuals. So I've just received those today, so I've had a chance to go through and see how we want to compile them. And then the parameters that we talked about the last meeting when you were asking about the hydrocarbon sensors and then the pH probes that are in there. We're just trying to fine tune what levels are going to trigger and which levels are not going to trigger based on what product they may be bringing in. So we're just getting some fine tuning on that information as to how we're going to do it. Remember, the lift station is still not commissioned because I will not accept it until it's 100%, because the day we accept the commissioned landfill lift station, that's when warranty starts. Even though these pumps have been in there for 3 years, we will not start warranty until we sign the commission, so I won't sign it until we're at the end. The offsite and 51st Ave servicing from Altoid down to the county shop, the Excalibur has not been doing any work on there for this spring because of the rain. We can't go in there and make more of a mess than we have until that's completed. The bio tubes and sewer pump systems have been, as far as I know, installed in the companies that agreed to move forward that part of the project. The electrical is temporary now with cords, but I have a local contractor that is just got his materials and parts coming in, and they will be hardwired to the building permanently like they should be. And it shouldn't be that bad of a project. There's only 2 buildings that are just absolutely out of additional, so we'll have to put a small sub panel inside and then tie off to this because it needs to be run independently on its own. So that is moving forward. I know there's some issues, and I know some of the residents have been reaching out for sure, and they reach out to myself as well. So all I can say is that now that we're hoping in the next week or so things start to dry up by mid-July, we can get in there, because there's still one business that has to get the water tied into it, which is Altoid. We still have to remove a lot of the backfill that was done previous, and then they tried to touch it up in March, which was not a good idea because it was still frozen, and they touched it up, and once it thawed, it sank and went soft. So we still have to dig that out and repair that and reslope and regrade and do an assessment on the drainage again. So there's some things to do. All I can say is it's been a long project, but we're not finished yet. And when it's finished, it will be right, is what I'm saying to everyone out there. The forced main and lift station upgrades, we have about 6 large-scale valves that are still in back order. We're expecting them soon. And when they arrive, which they're hoping to be mid-July, we can go back and put these in. This is part of the emergency bypass pumping that we had introduced to the system. So there is nothing happening for the last couple months for sure, until those come in. And when those parts come in, they say very shortly after they come in, drop those in, do the lagoon work, and then we start on the rebuild of the lift station itself, the interiors, valve works, and the manifold. So that's where that is sitting for now. And we have the infrastructure master plan or assessment project. That was another grant we had received, and that's to take our infrastructure. We have plans of our water lines, sewer lines, storm, hydrants, but they're in generality. It's on this street. The water line shows here in the map, but it may not be. So we've been collecting information we had prior to put onto a program that it will show it exactly where it is, so that every water valve is GPS down to the inch. That'll help us in many ways in development. When developers come and they want as-built designs for whatever is on the street in front of them, we can provide that. We know it's accurate. It's good if you have trouble in the wintertime and you're looking to shut water down for a water break, for example. You can go down and locate that within an inch instead of taking a grader and ripping up the road about here someplace to get through the ice and snow so we can access a valve. The program is to have the ability to take your mouse wave over the manhole or a hydrant, for example, either one, and if there's maintenance done, when it was installed, what was the maintenance? Was the hydrant flow tested last one? Was it just drained? When did we put parts in? What did we put in it and who put them in? So that's just far better than what we have now, which is a lot of paper documents stacking up, right? Easy way to keep along with that. So that's a big project. I think that's gonna take a slow seat this summer as construction projects are going full blast, but then come the winter months is where we'll be able to do the data entry and that type of work, as opposed to right now when we're just doing the GPSing or finishing it for all the valves. The Prosperity Park on-site, which is the park itself, ATCO Electric, we have set up a meeting to discuss ATCO Electric's portion of the park itself. The electrical equipment that's going in, the street lighting, the above-ground poles, the underground transformers, future transformers, that information where they're going, and we're setting this up with TELUS and ATCO Gas for in the park so we can get the alignment set now. So we bring our design team down to where we can say the easement is in the front of the property rows, that's where the gas and the power are gonna go. We already know where the street lights are going and the power poles that need to be there. So this is pulling everybody together, and then we can move forward with the design from there. So we've already paid ATCO. The materials, from what I understand, the materials have been ordered. The street lighting, we just confirmed that last week, the type of street lighting. So obviously LED, and we went with a straight black color. Unless they're back ordered, then we'll go to a galvanized, because we're not really that fussy for an industrial park. But so things are moving forward with that, and the meeting, like I said, is in the beginning of July, when we all hook together and sit down and take it to the next step. The ATCO gas line, the intermediate line from 45 Ave and 48th Street, or the old Water Goodnight Reservoir, coming through to the park. I have a meeting with ATCO and CN on Thursday in 2 more days, where they're gonna cross, and they're gonna do some geotechnical work, which just means some boreholes to see what type of soils underneath the track or beside the tracks. And then the alignment that they want to do, when they have that information, then that will complete their application to CN for the crossing of CN. And they're still feel they're on track for, late Q3, I doubt it, but a Q4 for sure. So we're hoping October, November to get that part of the project completed. So by the end of this year, all of our shallows and our deeps should be in. The deeps are in, but all of that should be in. So it's nice to see that the bio-pumping stations that are hooked up are now flowing a little bit into our new lift station, and it's enough to click the pumps on once in a while so I can see that they're doing what they're supposed to do. It would be nice to have a bigger flow, of course, so we could make it work and do, but so far, so good. I believe that's my report, and if there's any questions.
Anybody? Okay, well, thank you very much. Next up, CAO highlights.
Okay, it's been a busy couple weeks, and a few of the highlights. Met with the legislative administrator and the Parks Recreation and Facilities Manager to review all the RFPs for the Regional Recreation Feasibility Study. The ratings were done, and all that information was sent out to council for your review. Met with the county to discuss the possibility of creating a regional ARB to help facilitate with the lack of public volunteers wanting to be trained board members. So we're hoping to bring something to councils this fall regarding setting up some regional committees that will allow us to ensure we have trained board members that are willing to sit when these come up very rarely, because that's part of the problem. We don't see a lot of them, and so the cost to train and have somebody on, basically on call every July for nothing is difficult. Attended the Chamber Golf Tournament on behalf of the town. Attended the Women in Local Government brunch put on by Councillor Rudick. And today we received notification from the Alberta Municipal Wastewater Partnership that our application for additional funding due to the increased costs for the Force Main project was denied. Pardon me?
Teresa?
It is the grants people for, we got notification from Danette Lessick, but I think she doesn't make the decision. So,
Oh, that's Teresa.
yeah.
Okay, well, that's not good news.
No.
We'll have to do some inquiry to why. Okay,
All right, and that's all I've got for now.
any questions of CAO Ling? Okay, is there any other business of council?
I would like to clarify on one item for Councillor Rudick. The 190 liters per day per person, based on 4 people in a 30-day month, is about 22 cubic meters, and that's a good average for a home of 3 to 4, is about 20 to 22. So that's what, in Vegreville, we were typically hitting. If you're at 15, that's pretty light. I would think that's maybe just 2 adults. As soon as you add a couple teenagers into the mix, between showers and washing clothes, it jumps up quite a bit. So just wanted to throw that out.
At the Alberta Munis, they showed province by province per liter use. And
Well,
can't remember exactly, but Alberta has been getting better.
we're not good.
Yeah, household use.
Yeah, actually, I can look right now. Sorry, going back to this, Alberta in 21, these are mostly, some of them are different, but in Alberta, the estimated total water use is 195 liters per person per day in Alberta.
Per
Saskatchewan,
person.
yeah, is 208. In Manitoba, it's 164. California is 295.
Have they got a lot of water?
Australia is 274. Charlottetown, 170. Guelph, Ontario, 166. So they're kind of all over the map. But this also indicates too that there isn't a lot of statistic data collection on this, which is actually quite concerning given the amount of pressure that there is placed on water currently. So that just indicates again that water's been used as a renewable commodity, and we haven't really paid a lot of attention to it, which is problematic given, I mean, it's rained a lot this year, but we were projected to be in some pretty dire circumstances, but the fact that we don't have really current data is a challenge anyways, so. Thank you for clarifying that though, because there are other concerns, even just listening to folks that run lodges that have used low flush toilets, for example, have resulted in other issues that they need to more frequently flush sewer mains. Am I saying that correctly? So yeah, if it doesn't have enough volume going through the toilet, then it needs to be flushed the other way, which wouldn't be captured in per person usage. And actually, they needed to change all of their plumbing in one of the seniors' lodges because they'd gone to low water usage appliances and caused a whole other mess of issues. So all that to say, water's important, and we need to make sure that we're being accurate on our data collection. So thanks for clarifying.
Okay, if there's no other business of council, I adjourn this meeting at 4:59.